here with Bеттinej Heyerdal, the daughter of famous explorer Toре Heyerdal. We are in your home. I'm very happy to be here.
Yes.
It's an honor. And I mentioned this on this channel that I will meet with Bеттinej and we'll talk about her father and his life. And many of you have sent in questions. So you will, if it's okay, I'll ask those questions. It's a beautiful sunny day here in Oslo, in Norway. So I hope you can see us, that it's not too much sun here. It's very warm also, isn't it?
Yeah. The summer is coming.
It is indeed. And I'm holding up here a plaquette, maybe you can say that, from the Ra expedition in 1970. And behind here we have the Kon-Tiki expedition of, I'll show it like this, 1947. And I imagine now that most people know about Toре Heyerdal who are watching this, but there is a peculiar story, and I'll start off here if it's okay, Bеттinej.
Yes, of course.
We have been on several scientific expeditions together in Kazakhstan, in Azerbaijan, and you have helped me also in the Atlas Mountains.
Yes.
and several other places. And we have also more recently been in southern Italy, where we opened together a tomb from a Norman grave with 4 of the Hoteville, Alta Villa, as they are called in Italy.
In Italian, yeah.
Yes. And the reason why Bеттinej has been with me on several of these scientific expeditions is because of the name Toре Heyerdal, mostly.
Yes.
Because you still have many of his connections around the world. And he was such a door opener, I feel, and he's been very much a door opener to me also when we try to find new research projects.
And also a lot of them were also related to my father.
Yeah.
Work and theories.
Yeah, in work in the scientific theories you have also grown up in Italy.
I do.
Yes, in Colomiceri. So io non parlo italiano, but you have.
I do.
so it's also been very helpful to have her in processes in different countries also. But what amazed me the most was, and that's why I'm holding up this from the Ra expedition, because Toре Heyerdal, he had a Russian on several of his expeditions, Yuri Sienkiewicz. And Yuri Sienkiewicz, he was quite a phenomenon in the Soviet, because I think it was because of Toре Heyerdal's expeditions that he was a part of. He was offered this TV show.
Yes.
Yeah.
We started with that. Yes.
And every Sunday in the Soviet times, and it's in the Guinness Book of World Records, the longest TV show in existence for more than 30 years. He had this show every Sunday, and I've been told this story both in Kazakhstan, in Chechnya, in Georgia, and Azerbaijan. The same story. People say how they remember Toре Heyerdal. So apparently, everyone over the age of 40 knows about the name Toре Heyerdal and has some kind of aha experience from that, Toре Heyerdal. And when we were in Kazakhstan, man, they were running after you like you were some top idol.
That's right, yes.
Do you remember at the university in, I think it was Karaganda?
Yeah, I had to sign the autograph also.
Yeah, yes. From these old Soviet books from Toре Heyerdal. They came in really, really old books, and they wanted your signature. Professors at the university would come running after us there because we had moved to another faculty. And they came, this one guy, I remember, he was so happy to meet.
It was, yes.
Yeah, and we met also with the cultural minister of Kazakhstan, very honorable, and none of this would have happened without having you personally as a door opener. So,
and we also had Emma.
And Emma, the local archaeologist there. Yeah. And on this expedition, Yuri Sienkiewicz, he was part of Ra 1, Ra 2,
and Tigris.
Yes. And the fun part is, I'll put this here. That's okay. Yes. Yeah. The fun part is that Yuri Sienkiewicz every Sunday, first it was on TV in the Soviet times. There was children's TV for 1 hour from 10 to 11. From 11 to 12, there's some kind of nature program. And from 12 to 1 was the Travelers Club. And you can see this on YouTube even. There are some clips from it. And at the Travelers Club, that was Yuri Sienkiewicz program. And people have told me in these countries that that was the only live video, like documentary-like video, they got to see from outside of the Iron Curtain.
That's right.
Yeah. So you not only had Galapagos, but you had even America and so many parts of the world, and everyone was watching this. You know, everyone watched this, and that's a lot of people. And Yuri Sienkiewicz, isn't that right? He had many times as a guest his good friend Toре Heyerdal on the show.
He did.
Yeah.
Each time my father was invited for some new books or some speeches.
Yes.
He was a guest of you at the televisions.
And the interesting thing is that on this program, the Travelers Club with Yuri Sienkiewicz, Toре Heyerdal would consequently talk about two things all the time. One, we are all related, and two, there are no borders, not really. And imagine saying this in the Soviet times, there are no borders, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the reasons why people have this, in the Russian-speaking countries, have this phenomenon attitude to the name Toре Heyerdal, in a sense.
Yes.
So I hope many people who are speaking Russian and in Kazakhstan, and we have many good friends there also, and in other of these countries are watching this and can appreciate a good talk like we're
having now.
Yes, indeed. So if it's okay by you, I would like to start with a couple of questions from our listeners. I have on my phone here. I will first take a few questions from some of my patrons that have been very supportive on this channel, and they have some good questions. I know you have been looking at them before, and there is one from Michael here. He's asking, how close was Toре Heyerdal to finishing his book on the search for Odin? I think he means the research project.
The research. Unfortunately, my father just started in 2001. He did the digging, archaeological diggings, excavation in Azov.
In 2001,
2001, and he died just 1 year later.
Yeah.
So he was just starting, and he was in the process of starting new excavation, but he didn't finish. But I know that people of the academic, of the Museum of Azov are still continuing digging and researching. So I think other ones will have to take over the research. He didn't finish it. He just started it.
So this was a very controversial theory because he claimed that the Norse gods, like Odin, were initially real living persons, historical persons, and they had been made into gods some generations after they had lived, and that they came from the East. And that's quite interesting. If you stop there, that's quite interesting because recent DNA research
also shows.
Yes, especially from 2015 until today, for the past 6 years, proves that there are so, in Norway, for example, more than 50% of all Norwegians have direct descendants paternally, straight eastwards. I'm pointing here now, but into Central Asia. So in that sense, he was right, but he tried to focus much on Odin, and he had some theories linguistically on these Christian people living in Azerbaijan, but in Tanais, at the Sea of Azov, this is around the Black Sea, right, the northeast corner. That's where he focused his digging.
He did, because what he did is that he followed Snorri, that wrote the saga.
Yeah.
First,
the Norse sagas.
The Norse saga. First, he concentrated on how did he got this information, what could he achieve in the beginning of the 1200 when he started. Yeah. And he was a student or a pupil at the priest school. Yeah. So he had a lot of information from the Vaticans, from the monks.
Yes. So that's there are a lot of questions here, so I'll move on here, but we'll get into that. Patricia, she wants to ask you, if it's
Yes.
all right, did your father's accomplishment make you want to follow in his footsteps, or did you want to rebel and go in the opposite direction? Remember, Bettina grew up in Italy, right?
I grew up in Italy. You know, my father was very large. He wanted us to do the life or the thing we like it.
Yeah.
So he didn't push any of us to follow him.
But
and at that time also, I think it was more a man-dominated work, the expedition, the archaeology excavation and everything. And I was very interested and curious, but I never followed him.
Right. And maybe I can follow up there on a question, because I've always been intrigued, and I met many people like Toре Heyerdahl who have such a big name internationally, that the name has become larger than yourself, right?
That's right.
And you told me quite early on, I remember, I think it was something like you met people that claimed to know your father better than you knew him.
That's right. Yes. Yeah? Yes.
That's, you know, like the
Very
enthusiasm in America.
Yeah.
And at the Explorers Club in New York, you know, I was dragged into that club from former President John Lorette. I met him in the Sahara Desert at this big VIP festival with Kitin.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yes, and they said, you got to come to New York, because Toре Heyerdahl just passed away, and the Norwegian chapter of the Explorers Club doesn't exist anymore. And yeah, okay. So next time I was in New York, I went to visit them. And there were so many people that are Explorers Club members who cherished the memory of Toре Heyerdahl so much. And how was it to grow up, if I can ask this, with a father who's so internationally famous for so many decades, and traveling so much, and did you have like a distant relationship to your father at times?
No, not at all, because at home we had a tower in the garden in Italy, which was his office. It was an old hunting tower.
This is in Colamiceri.
This is in Colamiceri in the north of Italy, in Liguria. And he always went each morning in the tower, and the secretary went with him, and he came home for lunch and he went up again to the tower. So for us, it was a normal life.
He was working.
He was working, and then if not, he was traveling. And many times when he was traveling, depending on where he was bringing the family with him.
Yeah, so that's a distinction. He didn't travel alone, solo.
No, not always. Just like my mother and my sister Annette went on the Israeli expedition with him, and my brother Tor.
Yeah.
So sometimes, like when he built the Ra in Egypt, Ra 1 in front of the pyramid, we spent 2 months in Egypt with him, and we were playing in the desert or riding camels and horse while he was building the boat. But when you live with a person like that, everything becomes normal.
Yeah, I see.
And he was always, our house in Italy also was full of people coming visiting us.
Yeah, because you had Juri Sienkiewicz. He was many times.
He was many times in Italy, and many other people from all around the world.
And this is a fun fact, I'll tell you this, because you told me that, take some water, that's always good. I think you told me that once when Juri Sienkiewicz came to Colamiceri, he had with some food from the the cosmonauts.
The cosmonaut, and I'm sorry.
I'll take some drink to you.
It was like a toothpick, like a tube in metal.
A tube in metal.
Yeah, with Russian writing on. Yeah. And it was the food from the cosmonaut. Yeah. And it was, I still have it in Italy.
You still have that?
After, I think, now 40 years.
But you didn't taste the food?
No, I didn't dare to taste it. But I kept it like a souvenir. Yeah. And I still have it in my house. Yeah, as a memory. Yeah. For us, it was extraordinary. People was then starting going to the moon. It was after 69. Yeah. So for me, this was something really a clenodium.
Of course.
I kept.
It's a special time, I can imagine. Joe has a question here.
Yeah.
Which theory would you most like to see proven with a discovery?
Well, I think my father's discovery in the Pacific are now with the DNA, thanks to the DNA, starting to take shape. So they are, yes. So I think part of the early theories of my father are now more or less been proved, part of them at least.
In the
basically
Pacific,
in the Pacific
in
with the DNA.
Yeah.
So I think maybe it was this last interest that he had with maybe with the old Odin theories.
Yeah, the Norse gods, because he was criticized mostly for the linguistic theories he had there, but still with the DNA and the roots that we all have in Europe and the West, in Central Asia. So the only thing is there's a little bit of time here. We don't know exactly when these, but there are things happening now. I've been very vocal about this in my other videos also, about how archaeologists, first of all, this is, I think much of this is thanks to Toре Heyerdahl, the way he worked cross-disciplinary. That was sort of unheard of. I remember when I was a young researcher, nobody did, the geneticists didn't work with the archaeologists, and the historians and the archaeologists, they always argued and didn't work.
Because people forget that when he was a student of zoology and biology. Yeah. And he was going to a Virgin Island in the Pacific in 1937 to write the thesis about how was the flora and the fauna of the island. Was it originally from the island, or was it immigrating by people or by nature or by the wind or whatever?
Like the sweet potato.
Like the sweet potatoes and other things that he found that could not have been brought to this Virgin Island if it was not by the people. And that was what caught his interest as when he was 22 years old. And
I remember later on when I traveled around with the help of you and your family, and I met so many people who knew Toре Heyerdahl because of introductions, and on every place we were, whether it be in Central Asia and Africa, or even on Easter Island where I was, people would talk about these pyramids. Yes. That there's no coincidence to say it can't just be the east, west, and the sun. That they're all shaped the same way and similar. Then is that proof that they were transatlantic voyages that long ago? And did people travel across the Atlantic that long ago? And when we look at all that is coming out now, that was my second point. All the archaeologists now are looking things in a much broader time. Line,
that's right.
Everything is more connected than before. And now it's not Iron Age here and Bronze Age there, but it's all connected. And that's really intriguing. So I'm curious where we'll be in 10 years.
Of course. Now I think the DNA will change part of the history that we were learning at school.
I got another question here from Margot. If you can have your dad join you for one more adventure, where would you go and what would you do?
That's so difficult questions. But, I think there is still a lot of things to discover. I think there are many parts of the world which have not been properly explored archaeologically. So I presume that we will find much more. Yeah, I think there was part of the world where there have not been archaeological diggings that if you start now digging, maybe you will find something very interesting.
We got all this new technology now. We got the LiDAR, satellite photos, and advanced even big data, and the DNA technology is just in the past year, all the new technologies coming out of Harvard and Max Planck and other places. It's just really amazing. And how far back they can look with just a little bit of DNA now compared to just a few years ago. Michael has a question. He remembers the Kon-Tiki expedition, the book, the Kon-Tiki expedition. Didn't Toре Heyerdahl hypothesize that there were important Viking roots or history in places like Odessa in the Ukraine? And this is a little bit more west.
I know, but I'm not sure about that theories. Not when he started with the Kon-Tiki, at least. That was more related only to the Pacific Ocean. But maybe later on, he was trying maybe to focus on other cultural parallels and similarities with early cultures. So maybe, probably, but I cannot now remember anything about Odessa. I'm sorry.
Well, we have a question here from a person who calls himself Mevius. Says Toре Heyerdal was a great guy. I wonder with which of his trailblazing theories his daughter feels most strongly that the majority should one day come around to. And that's young people today growing up, which theories, I guess, would be interesting for them to know about.
Well, I think my father started with saving the natures and taking care of the oceans. And in the 69 with in the 70 with Ratu, he collected oil. What you call oil? He found out that all the Atlantic Ocean was polluted by the oil left from boats.
Yeah, from these big tank boats.
And today we are very aware about pollution, about the atmosphere, taking care of the world. But he started already screaming about take care of the nature and the sea already in 1970.
Yeah, right.
So he was early, let's say, together with Jacques Cousteau.
Yeah, with Jacques Cousteau, Did they know each other?
Yes.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
They worked on several occasions about, especially about environmental
issues. Yeah,
issues,
Jacques Cousteau. The French, So Wade has a question. How were they able to keep drinkable water for trips, the long voyages?
Well, during the Kon-Tiki, they found out that if you drink, I think it was approximately 2.5 deciliter each day of salt water, not more than that, then the rest could be, then you will not feel sick, because it was enough salt, but not to give you any illness. So if you then wanted to economize with the water you have with you, you have to try to.
But they surely had coconuts on some of the voyages and stuff like that.
Yes, but they had also a lot of water with them. But they also try to collect water from the rain. And they also try as an experiment in the Kon-Tiki expedition to drink the blood of a shark, but that was awful. So, but they also tried just experimental to see how they could survive in case they didn't have any more food.
You know, since you mentioned the movie, about the Toре Heyerdal movie, I see many people have written on before this interview that they have not read the books, but they've seen the movie.
The new movie.
The new movie. And I have to say, it's made by two Norwegian famous directors and producers, but I'm so I feel there were many things in the movie that wasn't that good, especially this, what was his name? The German.
Watzinger. They changed his character completely.
Especially Watzinger, because he was such a phenomenal guy, and he's portrayed in the movie as this hysterical guy, and that's the thing with the Kon-Tiki expedition. In the movie, there has to be a problem. Of course, you have to create a problem. But as I understand, that whole expedition, it wasn't a problem.
There was never a problem. Not at all.
I guess it's difficult to make a movie if there's no problem. It's just a happy trail, you know.
That's right.
I think many Viking voyages were like that also, right? There's no problem.
No.
So they had to create that with him, Watzinger.
They wanted the drama on board more than it was already, because they could use, you know, the men overboard, a lot of other things that happened, but they also want to put that, and that was very sad for the Herman Watzinger family also.
For the family, they complained, right?
They complained,
And so I would just like to mention that so that we know, for those of you who haven't read the books, but you've seen the movie, I mean, that was not like it was.
No, he was really an engineering which could solve problem and not find stupid solution.
Not scared
not at all.
And that was sort of like the atmosphere they had aboard on these voyages, right? Because it was kind of unique to gather all these people from international different countries and even from Soviet and still have a good. I've read some of, like the one you sent me, on how it was to be a part of, I think that was Yuri's.
Senkevich that wrote it.
He wrote some. I can put that text up if that's. And you can see how Yuri wrote about coming from Soviet and being included in this international team, and how interesting that was, so unique as an experience.
Yes.
And I'll put that up maybe for people to read.
Of course.
I'll do that down here. Let's see. I think we're getting close to the end here now, because we were only going to talk for like 7-8 minutes. But if it's okay, I can do a couple of Yarn of Yore asks, what was Thor's life philosophy and the motive behind his work? That's a big one. But
that's a very big one. Well, as I start in the beginning, he started with zoology and biology, and he discovered also that the thing on this Fatuiva, on this island, could not come to the island by themselves. It was people that brought them there. And then he starts seeing that the current and the wind always to the island came all the year from the same size. And the legend of the island also talk about the people coming from South America. Instead, all the theories of the academics told they were coming from the other side.
So he listened to the lores and the folklore and the tales of the ancient ones, the old ones, the elders.
Yes. Yeah. Right. And that's why it made him curious, and that's what made him starting. And let's say probably Darwin in his childhood was a very inspiration for him. Yes.
So would you say, since you mentioned curiosity, could that be sort of like a motivation for him throughout his life?
Of course. He was very curious. Each time he heard about something new, he wanted to know, and he was asking you a lot of questions around it.
Yeah, because what I remember when I was younger, a young man in the 1990s, I was very impressed with Toре Heyerdal, because for one thing, he worked very unorthodox with this international team and different scholars in different fields together, cross-disciplinary. But he was so good at asking questions.
Yes.
And I remember the first DNA research that was done by Erika Hagelberg in the 90s on the Easter Island. That was only mitochondrial DNA, meaning not paternally, but on the mother's side. It was very early days. And she went out in the media and said, I proved Toре Heyerdal wrong. But I remember, I don't know where I got it. I think I read about it, or maybe I heard it from you, that Thor said, well, great. You proved my because I'm asking the questions and you're able to do research. And she proved me wrong. That's okay.
Yeah.
Now we can move on, right?
Right.
And later she's been discredited because, well, not discredited, but at the time it was right. But later with more
accurate DNA research,
more technology coming.
It was Erik Torsby.
Yeah, but also that was from our trip.
Also, yes,
that was from our trip. But later on, after this first publication, there has been 2 more that has proven that there was actually people from South America coming to Easter Island, and not only Polynesians, and that proves that the tales of the elders
were correct. Yes. So, in fact, there was migration. Back, forth and back to Latin America from the island also.
And you mentioned the ocean currents, because Thor had a big thing about that, right? How the currents move, and if you see on the map on the Atlantic Ocean, for once, like we know the Vikings went to Madeira. And the Azores. And why do we know this? Because of the mice that left the ships, and we still find they were quite horrible small mice Vikings. The local bird community was devastated by the arrival of these Viking mice on the Viking ships.
They were not so small. There was raptors. There was rats.
Yeah, that's true. So the thing is, but they would travel there because of the currents. Right? To travel back north, you have to travel out into the sea. And if you're able to read the currents, and I remember I saw Toре Heyerdal for the first time on Sunnmøre, close to where my family is from. And he was at this very special island, which is called the Army Island, Herøya, where Viking ships would gather before they crossed around Stad to do a battle. And he was there, and he talked about you can't see the oceans as an obstacle.
It's a bridge.
It's a bridge, right? Right. And I think he used the word highway from where we were at that island straight down to Scotland. And you have to think of it as a highway. And when I heard that, I said, well, yeah, he's right. I've been programmed to think the ocean is a barrier. a barrier.
That's right.
Yeah,
but
I've been
it
programmed
is.
like that.
Yeah.
And then suddenly my eyes, and it was like boom for me.
Yeah.
And that was an inspiration. Yeah. Anyways, let's see if we have some more questions here. Mini Falda, she asked, she thinks that your father was a true man of the sea, and asked, she would like to know what he knew of the old maps and his knowledge of truly ancient history.
Well, I think he at that time, what were available in museums and in books.
Yeah.
And what he did also, he was traveling to a lot of museums around the world. And he was very curious. So he remembered to see things one place, another place. And he always wrote down notes in his notes book.
Yeah.
So he could go back if there was something that he wanted to remember. So he was always asking a lot of questions to the director of the museum about things that he was interested in, if they have some more or about some more information. But everything was found in museum
and I think
universities.
In his book in Norwegian, Ingen grenser, or borderless, without borders, I think he talks about that a little bit also because of the way we view the world as obstacles or as bridges, for example. And that's sort of, if you can make connections, yes, that's right, but you got to prove it in addition, right? But it's interesting to think of. And I think that title, Borderless, is not only practical, but it's a little bit abstract in a positive sense, because we have obstacles in our minds also. And
that's
if
right.
we are less borderless, like Thor in the old Soviet times on TV would say there are no borders. You think also in your minds, you shouldn't have too many of those borders. Right, yeah.
And also where he was searching for primitive boats or rafts.
Yeah, that's true.
And he think these rafts or boats were safer than the boats we are traveling with today.
Yeah. So I would recommend people reading his books if you haven't, or read about him on the internet. Go to Wikipedia or wherever. See the movie if you want to, of course.
Yeah.
And feel free to comment below here if you have some questions, and I'll follow up on that. I can even ask you some other questions later on, maybe. And I'll put this with Jure Sienkiewicz, what he wrote about how it was to be on a boat with Toре Heyerdal, because that was amazing.
Maybe when the museums open again, because now they are closed due to the COVID, but maybe next time we can show us the boats.
That we can do, yes.
At the museum.
Because if you are in Oslo, you got to check out the Kon-Tiki Museum, because that's an amazing place to visit. And I've been there several times. Maybe we can meet there in a follow-up.
And you can see more about his theories and his...
Yes. And also I know there is a museum also on the island of Tenerife on the Canary Islands, where some of his theories are presented there as well.
The cultural parallels, of course.
And what more now for you, Bettina, and me, I'm thinking, because I think in October we have planned this conference where you will be attending. Emma will come from Kazakhstan, it looks like, so that will be wonderful. That's a scientific conference on the relations between Central Asia and Scandinavia, where a lot of genetics will be discussed also, new publications, new science and research. And next year, I'm hoping to go to Kazakhstan again with you.
And maybe my brother.
And maybe your brother,
Maybe, or if not, we go.
Yeah, we should. Yeah. And to be out there on the steppes of Kazakhstan and feel some kind of similarities, thinking about Toре Heyerdal's theories and the way he thought borderless in a sense, I found that to be quite fascinating. In regards to our common roots, like the Indo-European roots.
That's right. No border.
Well, thank you, Bettina. It's been wonderful.
You're welcome. Yeah, nice to see you again.
And to come here and be in your house and with these artifacts here, I hope. Well, it's been an honor.
Yeah.
And maybe we can do a follow-up to this, as you suggest. That'd be nice. Yeah. Okay. Well, take care. I hope you enjoyed this. And let's talk again soon.
Yeah. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.